Just consider that on 26th October, a huge coalition of trade unions and workers had their massive strike very poorly covered by the media, but lakhs and lakhs of those workers endorsed the demands of the farmers. They endorsed the farmers' demands in meeting, I don't know in how many hundred meetings there were, they endorsed the demands of the farmers, apart from, of course, foregrounding their own demands. We thought it's time now, as Nation for Farmers, that the other non-farmer classes of society stand up and be counted, right? It's time for the non-farmer sections. The workers have already shown us a way, and it's time for us to be counted, and we are to be counted as standing for the unconditional repeal of these three laws. That's what we are to be counted for, right? That's one thing. The second is it's very interesting. As our reporters are speaking to the farmers at the gates and everything else, how strongly the farmers feel about the role and the performance of the media in this crisis. They've been extremely critical. We've carried pieces in People's Archive of Rural India, which you know of, where they are really lashing out at how the media is behaving. Those of us who worked in it for 40 years know that that is precisely how the media has to behave. There is not too much leeway there, but at least to those sections we can touch. Yeah, but just to tell you, in the last week, there have been about 7 editorials I've seen. They've come to a position where it's government should talk to these guys. They don't understand, basically there's an enormous amount of condescension that these dehatis, these yokels don't really understand. They're being misled. So government should talk to them and explain. You see, after all, the government has got incredible experts whom the media certify. And all those editorials end up saying, these are good laws, they should be implemented. This is something we need to take note of. In the condescension on the one hand and the firm support for those laws of the dominant sections of the media. About the laws themselves, as I said, and in fact, that has emboldened Prime Minister Modi to make the most, pejorative and angry comments, lashing out, saying these are not the farmers, it's the people behind them, it's the Congress party, it's these urban nakshals, all these sort of people who are driving the confusion of the farmers. Yet, and it's also presented the government with a terrible dilemma, which this government really doesn't care what dilemmas it faces. It functions in a particular way, and that's how it's going to function. But it does throw up a couple of things interestingly. One is, a month ago, you had the Supreme Court expounding a kind of what you might call a doctrine of designated dissent. That dissent must be confined to certain specific places. That designated dissent is an oxymoron. Dissent by nature is going to break designated spaces. It is going, and the farmers are doing that now. Second, I believe that the farmers of this at the gates of Delhi are fighting much larger issues than just those 3 laws. I also believe they are aware of it. And I also believe that several of us are not aware enough of how these laws themselves, particular clauses in them, affect society as a whole. Every law that is made does have a clause about legal possibilities in challenging the law, where all laws have those restrictions and clauses. And I have never seen laws with such sweeping exclusion of legal resource or legal recourse as this one. And I just want to read you one one clause from that. These clauses appear in the act relating to the APMCs. They appear in the act relating to the contracts. Here is this incredible thing. Article 18 and 19. No suit, no prosecution, or other legal proceedings shall lie against the central government or the state government or any officer of the central government or any officer of the state government or any other person in respect of anything which is in good faith done or intended to be done under this act. Anything done in good faith or intended to be done in good faith is exempted from legal scrutiny, and they don't define what is the good faith, and no civil court shall have jurisdiction to entertain any suit or proceedings in respect of any matter. That's Article 19 in the contracts one. Article 19 in the Indian Constitution is about freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. But here it's about exempting any government machinery, cog in the machinery, exempting them from legal scrutiny. I think that is an incredibly sweeping, deadly exclusion of legal recourse. And it doesn't specify that farmers can't, it says nobody can. Okay? You're going to see these kind of clauses introduced into every law that comes in. Also, one other thing that I ask people to consider and put forward where they can. Why were these laws passed at the height of the pandemic? I think it's an important question the media don't look at. Why were these laws passed at the height of the pandemic when there were 1,000 other issues demanding priority of a government? Now, Mr. Modi had a majority before the pandemic. He is likely to have one a couple of years, 3 years after it comes under control. But they chose to do this, and note that they immediately followed it up with the adoption of 4 labor laws, simplifying according to them 29 existing labor laws. The reason was simple. They believed that if you smash through these reforms at these laws at this time, all these guys, these workers, farmers, they're in no position to organize and resist. It was a really bad miscalculation. It's a logical calculation because many people indeed are hobbled by the pandemic and the thing. But this was the reason why it was done. And the day the opposition walked out of the parliament on the farm laws, the labor laws were passed in a few minutes. So it was done with that purpose. And please see that the captive intellectuals of this regime and in the media, in fact, wrote editorials. Never waste a good crisis. This is the time to ramp through the reforms. India is having its second 1991 moment. And on the only Punjab thing, I just have one line to say. 2018, November 29, about 2 lakh farmers gathered from 22 states and 4 union territories at Parliament. And they all had these demands, which the Punjab farmers and others have made more visible. They all had those demands on their demands charter. So I really think that now Dinesh should take the meeting to the speakers. And thank you very much for hearing me out.